Hi, my name is Ramya Naveda Raja, and I'm doing a film review and analysis on the Korean film The Bacchus Lady. So, The Bacchus Lady is a Korean drama directed and written by Lee Jae-young. The film was released on February 12, 2016, and covers multiple social issues, but mainly addresses the plight and struggles of the elderly poor living in South Korea, and how they find the means to live out the rest of their days. So the director, and this film was directed and written by Lee Jae-young, who is well known for his films that push the envelope and address important issues. A few of his other films, including Untold Scandal, An Affair, and My Brilliant Life. The Bacchus Lady is relatively one of his more recent films, as most of his earlier films and short films were released in the late 90s or early 2000s. After watching The Bacchus Lady and getting a real feel for his style of film and storyline, I can honestly say that I'm looking forward to watching his other films. I really enjoyed the way he incorporated multiple storylines and social issues into The Bacchus Lady. The way Lee Jae-young creates his characters and lets the audience find out who they are rather than telling them really helps the audience hold on to the characters and remember them better. So the main cast of this film includes Yoon Yoo-jung as So-young, the main character of The Bacchus Lady, Yoon Kye-sang as Do-hoon, and An Ah-soo as Tina, and Choi Hyun-jun as Min-ho. There's also another character named Kyo Chae-park, who serves as Seo Sung, or the first person the Bacchus Lady kills. So the main plot of the movie goes as follows. So-young, as she navigates her day-to-day life, she is a well-known prostitute who's famous for her sexual abilities, which is why she has a nickname, Killer Lady. As So-young continues her escapades with elderly men, she encounters many men who have a very low quality of life. She meets Seo Sung, an old patron of hers, who used to be very generous and give ample in tips. She has very fond memories of him and wonders about him when she asks another friend. She finds him in a full-time care facility and finds him to be very miserable. He has a nurse who has to clean him, feed him, change him every day, and a family who doesn't really care about him, as well as grandchildren who can't really stand to be near him. He asks for her help in committing suicide. She understands his plight and agrees. The film continues and follows as So-young completes this task for two other men who are all in very similar situations. They find their current life unbearable and ask for her help in committing suicide. All three men were very old and lacking in their will to live. It isn't until the final suicide and the third death that she is caught and taken to prison, where she eventually dies. Aside from So-young, there are three other main characters who have storylines of their own. There's Do-hoon, over here, who's a struggling artist who's several months behind on his rent, which he owes to his and So-young's landlady, Tina. Tina is a transgender woman and a good friend to both So-young and Do-hoon. And then we have Min-ho, a young boy whose mother struggles for financial aid from his birth father, who's refusing that Min-ho is his son. So-young took in Min-ho shortly after his father had his mother arrested. Now these three, along with So-young, have a family dynamic, and that carries out throughout the movie. While the main plot line is going on, and So-young is killing all these people, well, only 3 people, other characters and interactions are going on behind the scenes that address other social issues. We have Min-ho's mother and father, right here, where Min-ho's father is a prominent doctor who's denying that Min-ho is his son, and his mother, who's from the Philippines, and is just trying to get him to acknowledge that so he can pay child support. Since she's arrested super quickly after this confrontation. This is where So-young takes in Min-ho. We follow the story as Min-ho, right here, as Min-ho's mother wins the court battle against Min-ho's father, and he finally has to pay child support after it's proved that Min-ho is his son. We also see the relationship between Do-hoon and Tina turn romantic. At first, he makes several points in the film to acknowledge that he struggles to see Tina as a man. Sees Tina as a woman, However, I suspect that this was just a way to mask how Do-hoon really felt about her. As the movie progresses, Do-hoon and Tina confide in each other because of how out of place they both feel in society. Do-hoon is a disabled man without a leg, and Tina is a transgender woman. Throughout the movie, we also hear mentioning of Soyoung's son, who she gave up when she was younger. We see her struggling with this decision because she thinks that it's a defining choice that she really, really regrets. She also thinks it's a horrible choice, and she judges herself for that guilt. We also see Soyoung interact with a young reporter who's trying to write a story on Bacchus women. He encounters Soyoung a few times in order to try and get her story, but he only gets a little bit before she decides to stop talking to him and walks away. So, the ending of the film and my analysis of how the film ended. At the end of the movie, Soyoung is caught and sent to jail. It is unknown how long she is there, but she appears to have aged a little. She dies in jail, and at the end of the film, we see a box, presumably holding her ashes, that says no friends or family, Yan Min Suk, which was her name, before she changed it. I think one of the main questions that the audience is left with is why Soyoung agreed to help with those 3 men in their suicides. And I believe it was because the way she viewed herself. In several instances throughout the movie, Soyoung tells other characters how she's going to hell for the things that she has done. And while I do think she's referring to her prostitution, I think she's mainly referring to her biggest regret of giving up her son. I think she judges herself very harshly for this, and that she's been spending her entire life trying to make up for it. I believe Soyoung thinks that putting these men out of their misery and ending their suffering is how she can begin to atone for her sin of giving up her son, which is why I think she agrees to help them. She does this purely out of her own will and does not do it for the money or anything else like that. We see proof of this after the last man, a man she knew well, gave her a large sum of money for helping in killing him and staying with him until the very end. Instead of keeping the money, she only keeps a small part and puts the rest into a temple bank. Overall, I think Soyoung does not regret in helping those men commit suicide, which is why she calmly goes with the police when she is arrested. So I think there are several social statements the writer attempted to incorporate into this film, but obviously the main one is the Bacchus ladies. Bacchus ladies refer to elderly women in South Korea who have turned to prostitution as their only means of sustaining themselves. Many of these women have no other family that is capable of providing for them, or they are providing for their own families. However, the job market in South Korea is limited towards those with disabilities. The elderly, and even those part of the LGBTQ+ community, as we see Tina. According to a census done in 2015, the poverty rate of senior citizens in South Korea is nearly 50%, which is the world's #1 for senior poverty. And a large part of why this number is so high is because of the limited employment opportunities for the elderly. In previous generations and in the past, when people grew into retirement age, they would be looked after by their children or other family members. However, as society has aged, we have shifted to other means of looking after the elderly, like nursing homes, etc. However, they're expensive, and as displayed by the film, the quality of life is not always there. We also see instances of negligent or ignorant families, such as the case with Sevilo Song. This is why elderly women look to prostitution to sustain themselves. Another common theme we see is children from multicultural families. Throughout the film, we see numerous instances of biracial children or children from different cultures. Mino, whose mother is Filipino and whose father is Korean. The American soldier, whose mother is Korean and father was black, and possibly might be Soyoung Sung, but this isn't mentioned in the movie. I feel like this is noteworthy because the director and the writer of the film made an effort to include this. Something we also see is the impact of physically impaired job seekers and LGBTQ+ members trying to function in society. We see Do-hoon, who is a physically disabled man, struggling to make ends meet because no one will employ him due to his disability. We also see Tina while she is limited in her job. She acts as a landlady as well as a club singer. I feel these 2 characters are included in the film to give the audience a better sense of how difficult it is for those who are what some considered different or disabled or differently able to find a job, which is why we see them resorting to methods they resort to. None of them have what most would consider a normal job, and I think that's an important theme in the film. Overall, I really enjoyed this film and learned a lot, so thank you so much.